Leo, something is about to happen that will shake the very ground your enemies stand on. A shift so real, so divinely timed, that even the universe pauses to take notice. You didn't come to this video by accident. Your soul led you here because on September 4th, something will occur that no one, especially those who underestimated you, will be able to ignore. You've been patient. You've stayed quiet. You've endured storms that would have broken the average person. And now, the energy is finally shifting in your favor. Not by chance, but by design. Right now, the moon is passing through Scorpio, piercing through secrets, illusions, and false alliances. Saturn sits in Pisces, enforcing karmic consequences. And the sun, radiating through Virgo, is demanding integrity, truth, and order. This is not a random combination of transits. This is a cosmic summons. A divine alignment unlocking a portal of reckoning and reward. And Leo, you are at the center of it. Your enemies, whether they are known, hidden, or wearing masks of false kindness, are feeling the tremble. Not because you raised your voice, but because your silence now carries weight. They know something is coming. They just don't know how close it is. You've grown too steady, too sure of yourself. And it terrifies them. But hear this isn't about revenge. It's about revelation. September 4th will not arrive with thunder, but it will leave echoes that ripple through every life connected to yours. It may come as a sudden message, an unexpected opportunity, a door that seemed closed forever creaking open just enough for you to walk through. And when you do, everything will change. If your heart has been restless lately, if your dreams have been vivid, if your spirit has felt the pull of something you can't name, trust it. That's not anxiety. That's alignment. You are brushing up against destiny. And it's about to call you forward. Here, on Eternal Mindfulness, this is more than a reading. It's a sacred moment of reflection. It's a spiritual checkpoint. And your presence here matters deeply. So take a breath. Exhale the doubt. And allow yourself to receive the message that's already meant for you. Because starting tomorrow, the version of you who waited, who healed in silence, who carried the vision alone, that version will no longer be hidden. You are not just stepping into the light. You are the light. If any part of your spirit feels this message as truth, I invite you to comment below. I am ready to rise. Speak it aloud. Anchor it into the frequency of this moment. Let it be your signal to the universe and to those watching you quietly that you've returned to claim what's always been yours. And believe me, Leo, you'll want to stay with me through every word of this journey. What the universe is about to unfold for you is nothing short of miraculous. Let's begin. Leo, when we begin to feel a shift in the atmosphere, a tightening in the chest, a strange pull from within, a quiet unraveling of things once hidden, it is not always something we can explain. But for you, beloved soul born under fire, this feeling is a signal. And on September 4th, that signal becomes impossible to ignore. The moon passing through Scorpio is no small event. Scorpio is the sign of deep transformation, truth-telling, and emotional excavation. It does not whisper politely, it reveals with intensity. When the moon enters this realm, it acts like a spotlight in a darkened theater, suddenly exposing the faces and the shadows and the scripts they've rehearsed behind your back. This transit doesn't just affect what's around you, it illuminates what's been buried within you, the fears, the forgotten strength, and yes, even the betrayals you've forgiven but never fully released. And that's exactly what's being called forward now. Some of the people in your life, the ones who smiled too sweetly, the ones who asked you to dim your light just a little for their comfort, are beginning to feel uneasy. And it's not because you've changed into someone louder or more aggressive. It's because you've finally stopped apologizing for the quiet power you carry. They sense the rising within you, the calm certainty that no longer seeks permission. That terrifies those who've built their comfort on your self-doubt. You're not here to wage war with them. You don't have to. Because in seasons like this, when Scorpio energy is heightened and Saturn in Pisces is watching, karmic balance becomes inevitable. The people who tried to manipulate your perception of yourself are now being confronted by their own reflection. And the truth, Leo, is often the most painful consequence of all. There's a reason spiritual texts speak of reaping what one sows, not as punishment, but as alignment. What has been hidden must come to light. What was built on falsehood must collapse. And this is not your doing. It is simply the law of energetic return and motion. Imagine your soul like a candle in a dark room. For years, that flame was flickering, protective, unsure, maybe even shrinking to keep others warm. But now, that candle is no longer afraid of its own heat. And as you burn brighter, you begin to notice that certain people cannot exist in that light without being exposed. Like moths pretending to be butterflies, they begin to fall away, not because you chased them, but because they were never meant to walk with you in this phase of your truth. And this, dear Leo, is the sacred purpose of these transits. Not to punish or reward, but to realign, to make sure that who you are becoming is no longer hidden beneath layers of who you had to be. This moment is not about retaliation. It's about revelation. The masks are falling, and you don't need to pick them up. You only need to walk forward, fully clothed in the clarity that comes from choosing yourself again and again. There is deep healing here, and deep sadness too. Because even as light returns, we must grieve the parts of us that tolerated darkness far too long. The version of you that survived manipulation, silence, and dismissal deserves to be honored. Let them rest. Let them be seen, not as a weakness, but as the foundation of the strength you now embody. And if you've ever been misunderstood, misjudged, or made to feel like you had to shrink in order to be accepted, this is your moment to rise. To breathe fully. To be unafraid of your own radiance. If you feel this truth resonating within, I invite you to anchor it by commenting below, "My light is rising." Not for attention. Not for validation. But as a sacred declaration that your energy is no longer negotiable. Your light, Leo, is not here to ask for space. It is here to create it. There are moments in life that seem ordinary on the surface, but beneath them, something vast and invisible is moving. If you've been feeling a subtle tension, latilia pressure without a clear source, or a strange, magnetic anticipation that you can't quite explain, you are not imagining it. Your soul, Leo, is responding to a vibrational shift that has been building for weeks. And on September 4th, that shift arrives in full force, not with drama, but with quiet precision. Between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m., there opens a space I often refer to as a temporal threshold, a subtle crack in time, where your personal frequency can align with a higher stream of opportunities. It's not about luck. It's not even about timing in the traditional sense. It's about resonance. When your inner state reaches coherence, when your beliefs, emotions, and intentions are aligned. The universe mirrors that alignment by making something tangible move on your behalf. This is where the law of attraction stops being a theory and becomes a lived experience. It's that moment when you no longer attract lessons or resistance, but doors. Actual doors. Real opportunities. And the irony is, they may not arrive wearing labels like big break or miracle. No. They'll often come disguised as something small, a message you almost ignored, a name you haven't heard in years, a conversation that at first seems casual but later reveals itself to be a divine intersection. Like in the tarot, this is the energy of the Wheel of Fortune meeting the sun, the turning of fate colliding with clarity, warmth, and full visibility. Some of you may ask, why now? Why does the shift feel so potent at this particular moment? It's because so much of what you've endured in silence, those sleepless nights, the heartbreaks you didn't speak about, the dreams you kept alive in secret, have been encoded with intention. You've been planting seeds in unseen soil. And now, the sun has finally risen on the garden of your persistence. But here's the part that so many forget. When destiny knocks, it doesn't always wait for you to feel ready. It shows up when your soul is ready, even if your mind is still doubting. The window that opens on September 4th is not just a test of your awareness. It's a test of your willingness. Are you willing to walk through the opening without overthinking it? Are you willing to trust that what you asked for is actually arriving, not someday, but now? In everyday life, we are often conditioned to look for the obvious. But miracles don't always shout. They whisper. They slide into your inbox at just the right moment. They bump into you on the street disguised as a second chance. And yes, they sometimes come in the form of a message from someone who once rejected you. Only now, they speak from a different frequency because you have changed. Leo, this is the ripple effect of your inner alignment. A single yes from your higher self can trigger a domino chain of change in your external world. That is not magic, it's energetic mechanics. It is how the unseen becomes seen. And your job in this moment is not to beg, chase, or prove. Your only task is to be present. To notice. And when the door opens, don't knock. Walk in. If these words strike a chord within you, if you've been sensing something coming, something beyond logic or explanation, then you're already standing at the threshold. You don't need to force anything. Just declare your readiness. In the comments below, I invite you to affirm it now. I am open to receive. Because when your soul is ready, all of heaven listens. And what happens next will not just change your path, it will remind you that you were never lost to begin with. There comes a point in every soul's journey where money is no longer just a means of survival, but a mirror reflecting one's internal landscape. Leo, you are standing at that edge now, the place where external abundance begins to respond to internal truth. And it's no coincidence that this particular shift is happening under Saturn in Pisces, a transit that doesn't reward fast talk or performative effort. It recognizes integrity. It blesses those who stayed consistent, who kept showing up when no one was watching, and who chose truth even when it cost them temporary belonging. For many of you, finances have felt like a point of friction, tight, unpredictable, tied to people who undervalued your contribution or systems that never really saw you. Maybe you've been told you were too much, too creative, too intuitive, or not structured enough. But here's the secret. The very traits they once rejected are now becoming essential currency in a changing world. Your authenticity, once seen as a liability, is now the rarest form of capital. And that's why, in this season, things begin to turn. The project that got rejected months ago resurfaces with a new opportunity. The job you thought slipped away reappears with better terms. The idea you wrote off suddenly fits the needs of a new market. These aren't coincidences. They're confirmations. From the perspective of energy, money flows most freely when your emotional and mental channels are open. And they are most open when you're no longer living from a place of people-pleasing. The moment you stop editing your worth to make others comfortable, something remarkable happens. Money begins to choose you. Clients, collaborators, and unexpected blessings start to arrive not because you chased them, but because your frequency aligned with your value. And that's the kind of wealth that's sustainable. On a practical level, your physical well-being plays a role in this energetic openness. Chronic stress, poor sleep, or nutritional imbalance can block financial energy. If your nervous system is always in survival mode, it won't easily recognize or receive abundance. It's too busy preparing for loss. That's why self-care becomes more than a luxury, it's a form of spiritual alignment. Simple morning meditation, even just 10 minutes of stillness and breath work, recalibrates your internal compass. Reducing sugar, staying hydrated, increasing magnesium and omega-3s, these aren't just health tips. They are energetic interventions. They keep your channels clean, your heart regulated, and your intuition sharp. And don't underestimate the power of energetic hygiene. Light a white sage incense or use a piece of clear quartz while journaling. These rituals may seem small, but they help your body remember safety, and where safety exists, receptivity follows. Think of your life now as a garden. You've spent seasons clearing soil, pulling weeds, and protecting your roots from storms. Now, the first fruits are appearing not because you rushed the process, but because you honored it. And as they ripen, you don't need to prove you deserve the harvest. You just need to be present for it. So I ask you gently, but directly, have you ever felt poor in the bank but rich in soul? Have you known the deep frustration of giving everything, but never receiving in equal measure? If your heart whispers, yes, then this is your turning point. Declare it. Anchor it. Write in the comments below, I am the source of value. Because the moment you know that, the world knows it too. And everything, yes, even your finances, will begin to reflect the richness you've always carried inside. When your light begins to rise, Leo, the world around you cannot stay the same. And neither can the people in it. This part of your journey isn't just about attracting abundance or opportunity, it's about releasing the cords that no longer resonate with who you've become. The truth is, your growth is beautiful, but not everyone around you has the capacity to witness it without feeling threatened. And so, as your energy shifts upward, something else begins to happen. Relationships begin to tremble. Not because you've changed into someone new, but because you've finally returned to who you really are. From an energetic perspective, this is the natural result of alignment. The moment you start living from your essence unapologetically, courageously, consistently, any connection built on false dynamics begins to disintegrate. Old lovers who once thrived on control begin to feel powerless. They can no longer predict your reactions or pull your strings, because you're no longer performing the emotional dance they once choreographed. Former friends who offered you surface-level support, often rooted in quiet condescension, now find it difficult to even look you in the eye. Not because you've hurt them, but because your presence reminds them of the courage they haven't yet found. And those colleagues who once dismissed your ideas, who spoke to you from above as if you were still learning to walk, now they observe you silently, trying to replicate the very essence they once ignored. This isn't your punishment. This is your purification. You didn't lose them, you released them. You didn't betray them, you stopped betraying yourself. And the grief you might feel? That's not because something went wrong. It's the soul's response to shedding old skins. The beautiful, painful truth is this: not everyone is meant to walk with you when you stop walking with your wounds. Energetically, you've stepped into a higher frequency. And in this space, only what vibrates in harmony can remain. That's why your job now is not to defend, not to explain, not even to engage. Your job is to elevate. To keep rising. To hold your new center with softness and power. If you're feeling the echoes of these shifts, I encourage you to meet them with rituals of release. Sit in meditation with a single orange candle burning, Leo's color of personal power and heart-healing fire. Write a letter to the ones who once dimmed your light. Not to blame them, but to free yourself. And when you're done, burn it safely. Watch the words turn to ash. Let it be your way of saying, I no longer carry this with me. For those of you who are single, the space you're creating through this release is sacred. You are preparing for a new connection, possibly someone with Venusian or Jupiterian energy, gentle, expansive, and full of joy. Someone who will not need to fix you, possess you, or compete with you, but simply see you. If you're already in a relationship, this is your invitation to evolve the bond. Move beyond patterns of control or avoidance. Meet each other not in survival, but in trust. Not in blame, but in clarity. Because here's the deeper truth: love does not shrink when the soul grows. Real love expands to meet it. So I ask you now, not just as an astrologer, but as a mirror to your process, who made you doubt your own light? And more importantly, how did you rise anyway? Share with me in the comments. Your story is not just yours. It's a torch for someone else who's still finding their way in the dark. Let them know it's possible. Let them see that your light didn't burn out, it broke free. Forgiveness is not about erasing what was done. It's about reclaiming the keys to your own soul. When you carry the weight of resentment, Leo, it's not the one who hurt you that remains trapped, it's you. And now, in this season of energetic elevation, you are being asked to lay down that weight. Not because they deserve your forgiveness, but because you deserve your freedom. You see, forgiveness is not the same as permission. It doesn't mean you must allow those who broke your trust to come back and sit at your table. It doesn't mean reopening doors you worked so hard to close. What it means is that you are no longer willing to let the past shape the way your heart beats today. It's the act of breaking the chains with compassion, not with anger. It's the gentle revolution that whispers, I remember what happened. And I choose peace anyway. This moment in your journey mirrors the archetypes of Judgment and the Star in the tarot. Judgment represents awakening, rising from the dead weight of old identities and emotional bondage. It is the soul answering the call to begin again, not from scratch, but from wisdom. And the Star? She is the energy of healing, clarity, and lightness after the storm. Together, they represent the alchemy of Leo's current chapter. You are not just surviving, you are radiating. You are no longer a story of wounds. You are a story of resilience. And in this light, something sacred unfolds. You begin to realize that you don't need to be on a stage, don't need to write books or deliver speeches to be a guide. Every choice you make from truth becomes a beacon. Every boundary you hold with love becomes a lesson someone else can learn from. Every time you choose softness over spite, strength over shame, someone watching you from afar whispers to themselves, "Maybe I can do that too." That's leadership in its most divine form. You, Leo, are not just healing yourself. You are healing generations. The ones who came before you who didn't have your voice. The ones after you who will one day walk a little freer because you broke the chain. Your light is not only for you. It spills into rooms you haven't even entered yet. It reaches souls you may never meet. That is the power of authentic healing. It creates ripples in the unseen. And so you may feel alone at times. You may feel the echo of old pain as it leaves your body. But don't confuse release with emptiness. This space is sacred. It's the space where new things are about to be born, not from pain, but from alignment. Not from needing to prove, but from knowing who you are, without apology. You've spent enough time explaining your worth. This new chapter doesn't require explanation. It only requires presence. A presence rooted in forgiveness, not as weakness, but as sovereignty. Because when you forgive, you aren't just letting go of a person, you are letting go of a version of yourself that once thought you needed to hold on in order to stay strong. And so I ask you now, are you ready to live like someone who no longer needs permission to be radiant? Someone who doesn't need to prove a thing in order to be powerful? If you feel that fire rising, claim it now. In the comments, write, "I no longer need to prove anything." Let that be the declaration that seals this chapter. Because when you say it out loud, the universe echoes back, "You're already enough." Dear Leo, as you exhale now, let yourself soften into the knowing that something powerful has already begun shifting within you. You may not be able to name it yet. It may still feel like a quiet stirring rather than a thunderous sign, but make no mistake, the movement is real. Tomorrow is not just another day circled on the calendar. It's a sacred threshold. One you've unknowingly been preparing for through every choice, every heartache, every courageous act of patience that no one else saw. September 4th is not just a moment in time. It is the moment your timeline pivots. A point of energetic return where you no longer need to knock, because the door was already opening for the version of you who was bold enough to believe. You don't need to convince anyone of your value anymore. Not the people who overlooked you. Not the ones who needed you to stay small to feel safe. The truth is, your presence alone carries a vibration that only those with eyes to truly see can meet. That is your power now. And your responsibility is simply to own it gently, consistently, without apology. So tomorrow, when you wake, do so with intention. Rise before 9 a.m. if you can. Pour yourself a glass of clean water. Breathe in stillness. Give yourself 7 minutes of silence, just Savento anchor into your own frequency before the world pulls at you. Write down this affirmation and say it out loud, "I am entering the most radiant chapter of my life." Then feel the energy of that truth settle into your bones. Not as wishful thinking, but as a seed already blooming. Because this isn't about manifesting from lack. This is about aligning with what was already meant for you when you stopped settling for what was less than your soul's size. You've come so far, Leo. You've walked through so much. And you didn't just survive, you refined. Now the universe doesn't need more proof. It simply needs your permission. So let me ask you this. What would shift if you fully believed you are already worthy of everything you've prayed for? What might happen if you stopped shrinking your power just to make others feel comfortable? And what if just for today you allowed yourself to feel what it's like to be fully supported by unseen forces working in your favor? If this message awakened something deep within you, if it helped you feel seen, claimed, or realigned, please take a moment to reflect that energy back to the collective. Comment below with the words, "I am ready," so that the frequency can ripple forward. Like this video, share it with someone you love, and most of all subscribe to Eternal Mindfulness, where your soul is always welcome, and your light is never too much. Thank you, from the deepest part of my heart, for being here. For walking this sacred journey with me. Your presence is not only felt, it matters. And I promise you, dear Leo, the universe sees you rising. Tomorrow, it won't be you chasing doors. The doors will swing open because you've remembered who you are. Stay luminous, stay sovereign, and I'll see you in the next portal.